Allie with Potomac Bead Company, and I am playing around with some of our newer beads here, doing some beaded beads. With this design, I am using the vintage cut nuggets in the 4mm bead here, but you really can use any 4mm bead for this design. It's really not going to affect the look as you are creating these beaded beads. I just happen to be using them because they are new and I like to have fun with new items. So again, these are 4mm vintage cut nuggets. And then I'll also be using newer beads, which are the CzechMates diamonds. They're a 2-hole diamond, and we are going to be using them at the corners of our beaded bead. So whether or not you do it as a larger beaded bead or a smaller beaded bead, or how big you want your core, that's going to affect the number of beads that you need. If you do want to do these vintage cut beaded beads, you can go below the video to the date stamp that says when the video was published, hit that show more button below it, and you can get links to the different products that are used in this video. This is really a kind of tutorial that you can take and make your own, add some things. You can see the difference in the beaded bead itself that I'm holding. So I'll show you guys a number of different ways to enhance it, to keep it simple, and to kind of go on from there. So for the materials, I'll be doing a 3 bead here. So one of the beaded beads that looks more like a triangle. You can put it on earring, that it'll spin. You can put it on a necklace. You can make them slides on a bracelet. If you have a Pandora style bracelet, you can do a 4-1 and get those on. Depending on which size you're doing, again, is going to depend on how many beads you need. So for the try one, the one with 3, I'm going to be using 9 of the English cut, the vintage cut nugget. Again, these are 4mm, and I here have that nice bright sea blue color. I'm going to be using the darker purple here in that burgundy color. So I'm going to use 9 of those per bead. In addition to that, I have the 2-hole diamond bead, so the CzechMates diamond, and I have the white lila gold luster, and here I used the Jet AB full color. In addition to those 2 specialty beads, you need some seed beads. You're going to work with 15s, 11s, and 8s. So we're working with kind of the trifecta of the seed beads. Again, if you do want to kind of keep it more simple, you can actually only use 2 of the sizes and change it up. It's a very versatile bead. For my colors for the seed beads, I have the black bronze, which is going to be the 15mm, which is going to kind of frame out my vintage cut nugget. And then I have my 11s, which are going to be kind of at the peaks right below that diamond. The 11-0, I'm using the Aztec gold, and likewise in the 8s, which work as the bindings or kind of the joiners of these beads, I'm going to be using the Aztec gold as well. These are all Miyuki seed beads, and they are all coated in the Czech Republic to give them their colors. So to get started, you will also need 2 needles. I have 2 size 10 here. You can also use size 12. That's up to you. I have some wildfire beading thread in 0.006 in my green color. I'm going to use about 3 feet of that on my beaded bead. And then also it's nice to have a thread zap or a thread burner handy. In addition to that, I often usually have a pliers handy, a needle nose pliers or such, to flatten out the thread to make it easier to put in the needles once I burn the thread. And then if you want, you can also use some super new glue to glue the actual knot of the project when we get our thread back together, and to create these little vintage cut beaded beads. To get started, I'm going to put my 3 feet of thread on, and I'm going to do 3.5 feet just so I have a little bit extra to tug and play with. I'm going to put that on the needles, 1 needle on each side of the thread, and I'll get ready by putting out my 4 vintage cut nuggets and a little pile of all of my seed beads. So to get started, we're going to take our vintage cut nuggets, and you're going to slip 1 on to one of the needles. Doesn't matter which one, right or left. We're then going to pick up a cut nugget with both the left and the right needle, and then we're going to take a 4th bead and we're going to crisscross through. 1 needle is going to go from the right side towards the left side, and the next one is going to go from the left towards the right. What I'm going to do then is pull both needles at the same time and make sure that this grouping of 4 ends up in the middle at the bottom of the thread. Next, I'm going to repeat the steps, 1 on the right, 1 on the left, let those drop down, and then we're going to crisscross through another. You can do this with one needle also, it's just right angle weave, but it's easy a lot of times to teach new people how to do it with two. There you've got your second little grouping. If you want to continue to make this larger, you would keep going. To round it out to get the triangle shaped bead, I'm going to add one more of my vintage cut on each needle, one on the right, one on the left. Go back to that first bead that we put on. The needle that's on the right is going to go from right to left. The needle that's on the left is going to go from left to right. As I pull the needles out then, it is going to go into what looks like a rounded ball. So here's a cool thing that if you do want to make beaded beads, you can make them as simply as this. You can then slide your bead and needle around here, around 3 beads, and just tie a knot. And that one can be simple and be done. These are cool geometric shaped beads that you can use as spacers then with gemstones, with other beads, and so forth. What we're going to be doing is taking the thread and needle back through the side beads, the one on the right, and then the one on the left. As I exit the left and right beads, I'm going to give a nice tight pull to get rid of any extra thread that's showing. And now we're going to add in 8/0 seed beads on the sides of the vintage beads there. So 1 8/0 goes on, and I'm going to sew into the next side bead. Show you the side profile here. Another 8/0 goes on. We're going to go into the next side bead. A third 8/0 goes on, going into the last side bead there. And I'm also going to go through the first 8/0 and the first English cut. On the other side now, I'm going to repeat. So, picking up the needle, I'm going to sew through the first side bead. And the way to know that it's a side bead is you don't have any thread going from the one bead to the other. Going over then to the other one, add a bead, sew through, add a bead, sew through. If you would have 4 beads on, obviously you would do that 4 times. Again, sew through the 8 and come out your first vintage cut. Give a nice tight pull to tighten up any thread so you don't see tons of thread around your bead. Again, at this point, that makes a fun spacer bead. You can actually stop at this point, tie off your threads, and be done with that bead as well. What we're going to be doing, is we are going to be adding some seed beads between all of these little beads. So I have my 15/0 seed beads that I'm going to get out and actually add on either side of the 8. So grab your 15s, pour a couple of those 15s out on your mat. And now what we're going to do is put that left needle, just let that hang out to the side. I'm going to begin with the right. I'm coming out that English bead or vintage cut bead, add a 15, go through the seed bead. What this is going to do is help with that spacing and hide the thread. Add a 15, sew through the vintage bead. Add a 15, sew through the 8. So at this point we're going to put on 6 of the 15s. Add a 15, sew through the bead. Add a 15, sew through the 8. Add a 15, sew through the vintage bead. Now that that's done on the right hand side, you can see kind of what it looks like on its side profile, and then from the front profile it hides all that extra thread that you see. Switching over then to the left side, I'm just going to cross my project there and switch sides and sew through the exact same way. The 15/0 goes between each bead that's already on here, before the 8 and before the 4. I like the shape of these cut nuggets, and that's why I chose to do this beaded bead with it also. If you do it with a round bead, you're going to get a little bit of a different shape, obviously, because the shape of the base bead is different. Once you're done putting on the last of those 15/0s, Again, you're at a stopping point. You can keep this as your beaded bead. You can turn it to the side, go through that side hole, turn it this way so you can see that profile. Kind of up to you. We're going to enhance it even more. To enhance it even more, take your thread and needle through the 15, 8, 15 on both the right side and then on the left. Generally speaking, when you're working with two needles, you're doing a mirror image of one another, and whatever you do on the left-hand side, you're also going to do on the right, and vice versa. So your thread and needle are now coming out of the 15 O's before one of the cut nuggets. It's time to get out your 3 beads of your CzechMate diamonds. So I got my 3 CzechMate diamonds here that I will pour out of my sample bag. And I'm going to put those CzechMate diamonds in so they sit between my little holes right there in those vintage cut nuggets. To put the 15s on, to put the diamonds on, we're going to be adding a 15 and an 11 and then our diamond. So with the thread and needle on both the left and the right, you're going to add a 15 on both the right and left needle, and then get a couple of my 11s out here. So 15 on the right and 11, 15 on the left, and then an 11. And then we're going to put on the diamond. To put the diamond on, we're going to take the needle on the right and go through the right hole, needle on the left, go through the left hole. Push that all down next to your project. Next, we're going to repeat the pattern, but in the opposite direction. So we're going to put on the 11 first, and then the 15, both with the right and with the left needle. So 11, and then 15. Once you have that on your needle, you're going to sew through the next grouping of the 15, 8, 15. Doing it on the right, then on the left. 11, 15, sew through your next grouping of 3 seed beads. Give a nice little tight yank, and that'll put that diamond right on the top. Repeating 2 more times. 15, 11 with both needles, and on goes your diamond. While I have the right needle in my hand, I'm gonna go 11, 15, and sew through my next grouping. I'll then pick up my left needle, do the same thing going into the other hole of the diamond. Beaded beads, once you kind of get the hang of it, I always say start with 2 needles if you want to do the beaded beads, and then it's really kind of, you can just go from there and have fun with it once you get your base. And it takes a couple times of trial and error to figure out the exact spacing in the seed bead order, but they're fun to work with. Coming out the end then, I've got 1 more to go on. So 15, 11, my last diamond, and then my 11 and my 15, and back through the 3 starter seed beads. On the next side, we're going to do the same thing. Back through 15, 11, through the diamond, 11, 15, back through those 3 seed beads. Give a nice tight yank and pull that last diamond into place. So at this point you can see you get that nice diamond shape now, really accentuated with those CzechMate diamonds. You can also at this point, again, be finished. So this would look nice on a pair of earrings that it kind of spins around. What I'm going to do is enhance it yet again. So that's the fun thing of the beaded beads, is once you start, you can kind of keep going or stop at any time and take your thread and needle to the same side of the project. In this case, what I would do is if I wanted to stop here, I'd go through the 11 or the 15, the 11, the diamond, and then back my thread up, coming the opposite direction, and tie the 2 thread ends together. From here though, what I'm going to do is I'm going to decorate the diamond, putting some seed beads, creating a point outside of the diamond, and then we're going to link on those as our final pass to really frame out that vintage cut nugget. So starting here, coming out of the 3 seed beads, I'm going to take my needle on the right, go through the 15, 11, 15, and through my first diamond. From here, I'm going to add 2 15s, go through that same diamond again, coming back the opposite direction, which is going to put those 2 seed beads on the side there of the diamond. 2 more 15s go on, and so back through the diamond again. Circling the thread around the diamond then gives you that perspective where you have the seed beads basically on either side of the diamond. With the needle on the other side, I'm going to go up through the 15 and the 11 and go through the diamond, go through that first seed bead where your thread's coming out, add an 11 onto your needle, sew through the 15 and the diamond. That's going to create a point with that 11L. Taking the needle again, go through the first 15, add an 11, go back through the 15 and back through the diamond. When you give a nice tight pull then, that seed bead is going to kind of sit on the point, and both your needles now are coming out the diamond on either side. So you have a needle coming out the left side and a needle coming out the right. I'm going to go through and back my thread around all of those seed beads to the next point, and I'm going to do the same thing. So coming out here, I'm going to add my thread and needle, going back down through the 11, the 2 15s, the 8, back through the 2 15s, the 11, and out the diamond. When I come out the diamond, I'm going to repeat. 2 15s go on, through the diamond to the other side, 2 15s go on, through the diamond to the other side. Repeat with the left needle, but instead of adding the 2 15s, you're going to just sew through one, add an 11, and add the 11 on the other side as well. So I'm going to go through the diamond, through that first 15 on the other side of the diamond, add the 11, go through the 15, diamond, 15, make that 11 kind of stand out there, add an 11 on this side, back through the 15, and out the diamond. Give a nice tight yank and pull those extra threads. The reason we're adding this little peak is because we're going to use this to pull the threads in around the English cut, catching on to these 11s as well as the 8s. If you do not want to pull the thread in and you want to keep it a little bit more of an open look, simply use 3 15s instead of 2 15s and an 11. I'm going to repeat this same process one more time, adding those 2 little peaks on my last diamond. So I just finished going back through and adding my last little peaks here, and I have both my thread and needles coming out right at the diamond. From here, I want to take my thread and needle up through the 15 on the right with the right needle and through the diamond towards the left. Needle on the left goes up the 15 on the left, and then through the 11. Coming out that 11-0 then, we are going to add in some more 15s. What the 15s are going to do is frame out that vintage cut at each one of my triangular turns. Add 2 15s and take the right needle and sew through the 8-0 seed bead on the right side. Give a nice tight pull and those will go right in the middle there. Add 2 more 15s, sew through the 11-0 at the top. As you can guess, the needle on the left does the same thing. 2 15s through the 8 towards the middle. Make sure you're not going through any extra seed beads. 2 more 15s through the 11. Give a nice tight yank, and you can see it really frames in that vintage cut. From here, sew through the 15, diamond, 15, through the 11, so that one needle is coming out the left and one needle is coming out the right, and continue on adding in those 8 15s, 2 between each of your beads. So after adding in my groups of 2 seed beads, you can see it frames out the English cut, that vintage cut nugget really, really well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie off at this point, now that I have that fun triangle beaded bead done. To finish off, you can also continue on if you want to, and kind of frame out the diamond. Play around by adding in more beads if you want. So really kind of have fun and make it your own. But to finish off, go through the 15, diamond, 15 on the other side. I'm going to go through the 11 of that diamond, point, go through the 15, back through, up through the 15, and knot the 2 threads off together. You can see I have plenty extra thread because I did use a little bit more than that 3 feet, but really 2 feet will do you. It's just hard to get a hold of that 2 feet at some point. Once you have that nice knot, you can take your threads up your thread burner, burn it down, trim it down, or glue it down, and you have your fun little beaded bead. You can make tons of these. You can make the collection of them. You can see playing with the colors can really help you frame it out in different ways and to get kind of a different look versus the colors being the same. So check it out, have fun, play around, make your beaded bead. Try to do the 4 bead if you want, try to do the singles, but have fun playing around. I like the idea of doing that 2 needle right angle weave as your base and then just going to town and having fun with different counts and different seed beads. As always, if you need the materials to do these vintage cut beaded beads, you can go back to the beginning of the video where I listed out, or below the video to that show more button on below the date stamp to get the list of materials and links to the different materials of these beaded beads. Also, you can always stay connected with me by subscribing to this YouTube channel. You get regular updates when I come up with new designs, when we have new things going on in the Potomac world, as well as new products that are being released, which are always fun to get updated on as well. You can also stay connected with me at PotomacBeads.com by checking us out on Instagram, as well as subscribing to our email list. You can also check us out on Facebook and join our Facebook group for beading and jewelry making. There we love to post what we are doing, give you guys heads up on different sales and different materials coming in, ask questions, and also it's a great, great inspirational group to see what others are making, to see the artistic value in it, as well as get help answering questions and kind of solving some of your beading woes that you can get tons and tons of responses and help really, really quickly. So as always, thank you so much for watching and have fun creating multitudes and multitudes of these vintage cut beaded beads.